The San Antonio Spurs have emerged as a leading candidate to land Kevin Durant, and after the latest statement from the Suns superstar, it seems like this trade is just a matter of time. With the Spurs having tons of picks to use for Durant, and with Phoenix headed into a rebuild process around Devin Booker, what will this trade look like? And more importantly, will it turn the Spurs into immediate championship contenders, considering the depth they have right now? One of the most attractive free agents in the NBA world is Kevin Durant, and the current Suns player is likely to explore his options in the offseason outside of Phoenix. If there is one team that does have a competitive package to trade for him, it's definitely the Spurs. San Antonio is actively looking to add a veteran and a proven winner like Durant to pair him up with Wemby. And while Antetokounmpo was the superstar that had more buzz when it comes to landing in San Antonio, the narrative has changed now. Antetokounmpo is certainly a better player to have on your roster in the current terms because he is much younger, not injury-prone, and in the peak of his career. However, the Spurs might be forced to give up too much for him, and even though they have a strong core of Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, and Stephon Castle, the Spurs might be smart to not throw everything to land Giannis. If you put both players on a wage, you'd understand one very important thing. Durant is much more affordable and wouldn't hinder the long-term flexibility of the Spurs while putting them in a championship fighting position. And it's not like Durant is washed. Far from it. Last season, he averaged 26.6 points, 6 rebounds, and 4.2 assists while shooting a massive 52.7% from the field and 43% from behind the arc. As we speak, he is still one of the best players in the league on both the offensive and defensive ends of the court. And if you combine his scoring output with the impact that Wemby has as a young superstar, I guess you'll have a perfect formula for a championship. This has been reported by Shams Charania from ESPN, and when talking about it, he went on to write, "I think Kevin Durant is another guy that the Spurs are interested in. There was mutual interest at the deadline. I think they're going to be looking very actively to see, is there a wing player we can bring in that could take us over the top? The Spurs would put themselves on the map immediately with this trade, but even though he is 36 and many would like to consider him washed, Durant holds a massive value that the Spurs should approach with a lot of attention to not get ahead of themselves and underestimate the entire trade process." So, what would the Spurs have to give for Durant? The 14th pick of this year's draft, a first-round pick, and a matching salary while keeping Stephon Castle, and the second overall pick would be the perfect scenario for both teams. It would give Phoenix some good core as well because they will have 2 young players in exchange for a player who might have let his ego get the best of him in recent years. If you're going to focus on winning championships, the last thing you'd need is to fight with fans on social media. And Kevin Durant is known as a superstar who uses burner accounts in order to defend himself against these critics. But in one of the latest episodes of Durant being on Twitter, it seemed like he already hinted that the time in Phoenix is done and dusted. Evan Sidri reported that the Spurs and Durant held mutual interest at the trade deadline, highlighting how the Spurs are going to save a lot of assets and will add a player of a similar caliber compared to Giannis. To this, one fan wrote, "Would be the 5th franchise Durant joins. You can't be a top 15 player of all time if you've played for 5 franchises. Winners build dynasties. They don't jump ship every time there is a sign of a struggle." To this, Durant went on to write, "Like I always say, make your own rules up and curate this NBA fantasy world the way you want. Enjoy that top 15 list." Of course, Durant is indicating that he is the one who decides about his future, and just because he jumps franchises left and right doesn't mean that it takes away from his greatness as a basketball player. But still, ever since he left the Thunder for the Warriors in 2016 and went on to win 2 championships with Golden State, he has taken a lot of criticism from the entire league and the fans of the sport. When he tried to create his own legacy in Brooklyn with Kyrie Irving and later with James Harden, it turned out that they were unable to make a deep run because of the instability and the lack of depth the Nets had at that point. But now with the Suns, Durant hasn't been able to find a comfortable environment in which he can succeed on a team level. Again, a very important thing here is the ego, and at a certain point Durant needs to understand that if he wants to fight for yet another championship in his career, the only way is to be more of a team player. Plus, if you are to look at the current situation in Phoenix and count the no-trade clause on Bradley Beal, it makes the most sense for both sides to cut the ties and just continue on their own. Even Brian Windhorst has gone on to say that this is just a matter of time, and when addressing the entire Suns-Durant situation, the ESPN reporter said, "I am 98% sure Durant is not going to be a Sun next year. How it works out though, I am about 1% sure." We've been talking a lot as to why this trade makes a lot of sense for Durant, but we didn't mention the other side, Phoenix. The team is in desperate need to upgrade their roster because running it back in the previous season with the exact same Big Three didn't really pay its dividends. They missed the playoffs after playing in the finals a couple of years ago. The team finished with a 36-46 record, and from this point of view, it seems like everyone apart from Booker and Beal is eligible for a trade. On top of that, the Suns are yet to decide on who their head coach will be, and the fact that they've gone all in for a win-now situation has turned out horribly wrong for them. Now, they have to accept their mistake and start building from scratch. If they can land two good players in the next couple of years from the picks they'll receive from the Spurs, and if they can land a solid role player in this package as well, it will definitely be a booster for their already low morale in the team. Beal hasn't been playing the best basketball as we speak, and the hopes were extremely high, so the paradox here is that even though Durant is the best trade piece the Suns currently possess, they cannot get a lot in return. Even though Beal is not tradable, the team is likely to buy him out of his contract and just get rid of the weight he is posing to the team as we speak. The future for the Suns is unfortunately not now, and the last season made it very well known to us that they need to be looking for young, viable solutions for the future while they still have Booker on the team. Whatever they decide to do with Durant, it's going to have a massive ramification for their franchise, and the decision on Durant needs to be done sooner rather than later. With all this in mind, do you think that Kevin Durant will be traded in this offseason? And, more importantly, do you think the Spurs have the best environment for the veteran? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that appears on your screen right now.